Good morning, students. In the last session, we studied about the background of the introduction of new economic policy of 1991. The new economic policy moved India to a part of the global world. That means India became a part of globalization. Globalization is an outcome of liberalization and privatization. Removing barriers or restrictions set by the government is what is known as liberalization. With liberalization of trade, businesses are allowed to make decisions freely about what they wish to import or export. The government imposes much less restrictions than before and is therefore more liberal. Though a few liberalization measures were introduced in 1980s in areas of industrial licensing, export-import policy, technology upgradation, fiscal policy, etc. Let us study some important areas such as the industrial sector, financial sector, tax reforms, foreign exchange markets, and trade and investment sectors, which received greater attention in and after 1991. First, we study about our industrial sector. Our industrial sector was regulated before 1991. In India, regulatory mechanisms were enforced in various ways. Industrial licensing, under which every entrepreneur had to get permission from government officials to start a firm, close a firm, or decide the amount of goods that could be produced. Private sector was not allowed in many industries. Some goods could be produced only in small scale industries, and controls on price fixation and distribution of selected industrial products. After 1991, our industrial sector was deregulated. The reform policies introduced in and after 1991 removed many of these restrictions. Industrial licensing was abolished for almost all products except a few product categories like alcohol, cigarette, hazardous chemicals, industrial explosives, etc. The only industries which are now reserved for the public sector is a part of defense equipment, atomic energy, energy generation, and railway transport. Many goods produced by small scale industries have now been de-reserved. In many industries, the market has been allowed to determine the prices. Next, our financial sector. Financial sector includes financial institutions such as commercial banks, investment banks, stock exchange operations, and foreign exchange market. The financial sector in India is regulated by the Reserve Bank of India. One of the major aims of this policy to reduce the role of the RBI from regulator to facilitator of financial sector. This means that the financial sector is allowed to take decisions on many matters without consulting the RBI. Freedom to banks to set up new branches without the approval of the RBI. Establishment of private banks are allowed. Foreign investment limit in banks was raised to around 50%. Foreign institutional investors such as merchant bankers, mutual funds, and pension funds are now allowed to invest in Indian financial markets. Next is tax reforms. Tax reforms are concerned with the reforms in the government's taxation and public expenditure policies, which are collectively known as its fiscal policy. There are two types of taxes, direct and indirect. Direct taxes consist of taxes on income of individuals as well as profit of business enterprises, that is corporation tax. Personal income tax rates have been reduced since 1991 as it was felt that high rate of income tax is an important reason for tax evasion. That is, if the tax rate is high, the people are reluctant to pay tax. Corporate tax rate, which was very high earlier, has been gradually reduced. Indirect tax rates have been substantially lowered. The Parliament passed the Goods and Services Tax Act in 2016 to simplify and introduce unified indirect tax system in India.